Okay, in this video, we are going to at least start talking about the first of the last seven visions. We did 12 through 16 was a series of seven visions that talk about the behind the scenes warfare that's happening between Satan and Satan's agents and why life is the way that it is for God's people, difficult here on earth. It's because the dragon is mad and he's after us. And so that was 12 through 16. In 17 through 22, we're going to have another series of seven visions. Now let me just say this real quick. You see how many times we've been talking about the number seven in the book of Revelation? We've done a ton of that. There's seven descriptions of Jesus in chapter 1. There's seven letters written to seven churches, and those seven letters are composed of seven different parts, and there's seven seals on the scroll and seven trumpets and seven bowls of wrath and seven visions, and now we're getting ready to look at another seven visions. Okay, there's a lot of sevens in this book. Remember that. It's going to be really important to remember that in just a second. So anyway, I got distracted. We're going to talk about this second series of seven visions, and whereas 12 through 16 is a series of visions about the war that's happening between the dragon and his agents and God and his people, this last series of seven visions is going to be the story of victory, where God is going to defeat all of his enemies and all of his people will be vindicated, and the hard life that they lived here on this earth is going to be worth it in the end. That's what we're going to start in this video. So we're going to start in chapter 17. And what I would really like to happen is for all of this section, 17 through 19 and verse 10, I would like to be able to do it in one video. I don't know if that's going to be realistic or not. So I'll just record this first major section, and when I'm done with the first major section, I'll take a look at how long I've been talking and decide whether or not to break this up into multiple videos or not. So also, I don't know how I'm going to do this on my computer. It's why, and this is only my opinion, I think writing in your Bible, it's so much more functional and useful, because you're just limited whenever you're writing on your computer. But even with a ton of different options for annotating the text, it's still not what I want. So I think I'll just do a combination of showing you what's in my Bible, probably more of that in this video than anything else, and how I'm going to mark it on my computer. So let's go to my Bible first. This is going to be something that we have already done. This is the big section, chapter 17 through 22, victory, and it is a series of seven visions. The vision number 1 of 7, which is from 17:1 to 19:10, is going to be about the destruction of the prostitute. I wrote that title in the last video, the destruction of the prostitute. And since it's orange and I'm doing the section, I just went ahead and highlighted orange so that I can see, hey, this is the start of a new section. I will show you the judgment of the great prostitute. Okay, so we know what we're getting ready to talk about. But this is one of the things that I'm not going to be able to do in my computer Bible, I think. This section, this first vision, 1 of 7, is divided up into multiple different sections. Let's call them subpoints. And so I wrote the subpoints right here in purple in the margin, because purple is my subsection. And so at least on my page right now, let me show you this first thing that we're going to be doing. Verses 1 through 6 is an introduction story. And we've done this before. I think we did it in chapter 12, where it was like, here's a story, and then here's what the story means. So verses 1 through 6 is the intro story. And then verses 7 through 15 is where we're going to identify the characters that we talked about in the story. So, and take characters loosely, like characters, symbols, whatever it is you want to think about on that. So in chapter 17, you've got the many waters. In did I say that correct? In chapter 17 and verse 1, you have the many waters. And then in verse 15, we're going to have, here's what the many waters are. And then in verse 2, you have the dwellers on earth. And in verse 8, you've got a description. Here's who the dwellers on earth are. And so let's just do this. This is what I would do right now if I were you. I'm not going to be able to do it on my computer. You know what? Maybe I will try something with this. Let me come over to my computer. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go like this. 17, 1 through 6. And I'm going to put one big note on that. I do not want that whole thing highlighted, so take the highlight off. But I'm going to turn my note purple. You know what? Give me 1 second. I don't want to do it that way. I want it attached to the verses, not to the words. How do I do this? Oh, there we go. References. Study Bible. Okay. Just a little change real quick that doesn't affect you. So what I'm going to do with that note is I'm going to say Revelation 17, 1 through 6 equals introduction story. Okay. So, see my little purple note there? This is why I don't like it. I want to see it in my Bible, but whatever. That's the next best thing. So verses 1 through 6 is the introduction story. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here and I'm going to say verses 7 through 15 for verses 7 through 15, I'm going to call that Revelation 17, 7 through 15 equals character identification. Okay, that's good enough. It will at least help me to remember if I open up my Bible on my computer. Okay, so let's start reading the text. And as we read through the text, we will mark each of these things and say something about them. Okay, so verse 1. If you were here right now, this is what I want to do. If you were sitting in front of me right now, what I would do is say, do you want to read the whole thing or do you want to stop and go as we move through? Let's read the whole thing first so we have the big picture. Chapter 17, verses 1 through 6. Then one of the 7 angels who had the 7 bowls came and said to me, "Come, I will show you the judgment of the great prostitute who is seated on many waters, with whom the kings of the earth have committed sexual immorality, and with the wine of those whose sexual immorality the dwellers on earth have become drunk." So here's the prostitute. The kings of the earth have committed sexual immorality with her. The dwellers on the earth have drunk her wine and become drunk. Verse 3. And he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman. I'm going to treat this woman as if she's the prostitute, the same person. Maybe you'll find somebody who disagrees with that, but that's what I'm doing. Since we're talking about the woman, the great prostitute, okay, that's who she is. In verse 3, he carried me away into the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast, that was full of blasphemous names, and it had 7 heads and 10 horns. We've already met this beast. We've been talking about this beast since chapter 11 when he was introduced. No, chapter 12 when he was introduced. No, wait a second. He was introduced in chapter 11, and then in chapter 13, that's where he was described. Got it. Okay, so you've got the prostitute is riding on top of the beast. The beast is carrying her. Got it. Verse 4. The woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet. Those are royal colors. Fancy, expensive royal colors. The woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet and adorned with gold and jewels and pearls, holding in her hand a golden cup full of the abominations and the impurities of her sexual immorality. And on her forehead was written a name of mystery, Babylon the Great, mother of prostitutes and of earth's abominations. And I saw the woman drunk with the blood of the saints, the blood of the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. And when I saw her, I marveled greatly. Okay, so let's do this. You'll probably have to give me just 1 second as I figure out what kinds of annotation I have in this right now. I'll show you in my Bible what I've done for each one of these things. Okay, so in chapter 17, sorry, I got to get my camera stretched all the way across my Bible here. Chapter 17 and verse 1. Then one of the 7 angels who had the 7 bowls came and said to me, "Come, I'll show you the judgment of the great prostitute who is seated on many waters." Okay, let's look at verse 15. In verse 15, we have a really nice identification. The angel said to me, "The waters that you saw where the prostitute is seated are peoples and multitudes and nations and languages." Okay, so in verse 1, the prostitute is seated on many waters, and then I've got, it's purple because it's kind of like a subsection or a theme or something. It's purple to me. The many waters, and then I've got a little note here that says, hey, look, remember to look at verse 15, and you go to verse 15, and it says, this is what the many waters are. The many waters is, let's just say it like this, everybody, all people, all races, all nations, all languages, everybody, all people. So the prostitute has something to do with all people. So how am I going to do that in this Bible? Many waters. It would be really nice if I had a purple underline, but I don't think I do. I've got a red underline and a pencil underline and a green underline and a blue underline. I guess since it's my computer Bible and I don't really have to worry about it getting big and nasty and messy because I can delete it anytime that I want, I guess what I'll do is I'll just highlight it purple. I don't want it highlighted purple because it's not that big of a deal. I just want to remember to look at it and see my verse 15, but you don't always get what you want, right? Okay, so what I'm going to do then next to that is I'm going to say, see Revelation 17:15. The waters that you saw. And then what I'll do is I'll go ahead and scroll on down to verse 15. And this is underlined in my actual Bible, but since I'm doing it this way, I'm just going to highlight it, the waters, just so I can remember. Okay. Next to the waters, I don't have a thing that says, hey, also go back and see verse 1. If you wanted to make your cross references complete, that's fine. But I've only got my references to the first one because I'm reading the intro story where it says, here's our characters, and I want it to point me to the second section where it says, here's who these characters are. This is what the identification is. Okay, got it. Let's go. I'll show you the next one. The next one is going to be chapter 17 and verse 2. So the prostitute is seated on many waters, all people, with whom the kings of the earth have committed sexual immorality, and with the wine of whose sexual immorality the dwellers on earth have become drunk. Who are the dwellers on earth who are drinking the wine of the prostitute? Well, lucky for us, if you go over to verse 8, it says, let's just read all of verse 8 here. Looks like I need a little more. There we go. Let's read verse 8. The beast that you saw was and is not and is about to rise from the bottomless pit and go to destruction. And the dwellers on earth, check this out, whose names have not been written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, will marvel to see the beast because it was and is not and is about to come. Okay, so the dwellers on earth are not God's people. Everybody who's not God's people, their names have not been written in the book of life. So let's go ahead and mark that in the Bible. So where am I here? Chapter 17. Dwellers on earth, it's going to be purple, and I'm going to write next to that purple note, see Revelation 17 and verse 8, where it tells me who the dwellers on earth are. You know what? This might be fun. Sorry you got to deal with me while I do all of this. I'm just going to give it a neat little symbol. And I need to do it with this one too, so that I know that there's a note attached to it. If I don't put a little symbol there, then I'm not going to know that there's a note attached to it. So, got my little note. Okay, I think now that you know what we're doing, we'll be able to move a little bit faster here. Also, I think that I've missed one in my Bible, and we'll do that right now. In verse 2, it says, with whom the kings of the earth have committed sexual immorality. Let's do that one. Let's highlight kings. And put my little symbol so that I know there's a note attached to it. And for kings, I'm going to write see Revelation 17. And I don't have this one down, so verse 12. 17:12. And so let's go on down to, did I do 8? The beast that you saw was and is not dwellers on earth. That needs to be purple. Okay, let's go down to verse 12. Verse 12 is where we're going to get to see something about the kings. So let's just go ahead and highlight them purple. That's who these kings are. Got it. Boy, I sure hope you're following me here. I know that this is getting confusing with dealing with me trying to figure out how to write it in my computer Bible. Okay, so we've got our many waters, we've got the kings of the earth, we've got the dwellers on the earth. Let's do verse 3. In verse 3, it says, I saw a woman. So, verse 3, carry me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman and for the woman, what I'm going to do is see Revelation 17 and verse 5. And the reason why I'm pointing to verse 5 is because the woman is marked. So we can know something about who this woman was. In verse 5, it says, on her forehead was written a name of mystery, Babylon the Great, mother of prostitutes and earth's abominations. So here's this woman, and she says right on her forehead for everybody to see, hey, everybody, this is who I am. Or maybe not this is who I am. It may not be that she is Babylon, but she belongs to Babylon. Just like God's people are marked as God's people on their forehead, this woman is marked by Babylon. She belongs to Babylon. And so that's in verse 5. And since we're doing that, this is such a major thing throughout this section that I'm just going to go ahead and highlight Babylon the Great yellow because I want to see who this Babylon the Great is. I also put, you know what, we should probably do that. Since we're talking about the woman and Babylon the Great, let's do this. Look. Babylon the Great. We were introduced to Babylon the Great in chapter 14 and verse 8, and we see references to Babylon the Great in verse 18, chapter 18 and verse 2, verse 10, verse 18 and 21. So Babylon the Great is all throughout this whole section. So I'm going to go ahead and write that in this little note. From Revelation 14:8, see also Revelation 17:18, 18:20, nope, 18:2, 18:2, comma, 10, comma, 18, comma, 21. And then I'll show you. I'm not gonna do this in this video. It's too much. But if you look at verse 18, for example, the very first one, next to each one of those where Babylon is mentioned that we just marked, it says, the woman that you saw is the great city that has dominion over the kings of the earth. Hey, see verse 5. And when I go to verse 5, it says, oh, look, here's the big note. Oops. Oh, look, here's the big note about Babylon the Great. She starts here, and this is where she's mentioned all throughout. It's just a way of cross-referencing so that I can see it when I'm teaching and preaching. Okay, so there's Babylon the Great. Listen, I already know we're not too trying to understand this yet. Right now, we're just trying to mark it so we have our tools ready in order to understand it. So stick with me. Okay. So we've got the beast in verse 3. She's sitting on, what do you want to do? I'm tempted to put a scarlet beast, but I think I'm just going to put beast. Because the beast is the thing that we've been doing for this whole time. And what I'm going to do for the beast is I'm going to say, see verses, Revelation 17, verses 8 through 14. Because we've got a big, long chunk of text coming up where we're going to talk about this beast. And I'm tempted to say where we're going to identify this beast, but it's Revelation, so it's not that easy. Wouldn't it be nice if we could identify the beast? But no, we're not going to be able to do that. So it looks like that's everything. We read this story. There's this prostitute. She's sitting on many waters. It covers all people. The prostitute is committing sexual immorality with the kings of the earth. Everybody who's not God's people, the dwellers on the earth, they're drinking the wine of her abominations. Also, this woman, she's sitting on, riding on the beast. And so we'll talk a little bit more about some of that as we go. Okay, so let's move into our second section now. I think probably before we move into this second section, I think probably this might be a good time. Let me get a drink if we're going to do this. This might be a good time to start talking about some of these people. Now, when we talk about the dragon, no problem. He's Satan. Everybody knows who the dragon is. When we talk about the beast, the first beast, the sea beast, who is the beast here in chapter 17, when we talk about that beast, it's a little harder because it's kind of abstract, but at least we can nail something down with this beast. Because in chapter 13, you've got the references to Daniel 7 and the different animals. And so you would call this something like the kingdoms of man. The kingdoms of man, and especially the kingdoms of man who oppress God's people. I think maybe there's even something more that you can say about that. And then in chapter 13, you had the false prophet or the earth beast. A lot of people say that it would be like this. The first beast is going to be the Roman Empire. The second beast is going to be the imperial cult. So it's going to be like the religious aspect. Not only religious, there's political overtones here. There's society pressure. There's all kinds of factors here. But the imperial cult that causes people to worship the first beast. So the first beast would be the Roman Empire. The second beast would be the imperial cult, the force that causes people to worship the Roman Empire. And then our question would be, okay, then who is the prostitute? And if you're going along with this Rome thing that I'm describing right now, the prostitute might just be Rome, the city of Rome. The first beast is the Roman Empire, and the prostitute is riding on the beast, and she's the one that's kind of creating the problems here. So you would say Rome, the city of Rome. That would be one way to identify this. So first beast is empire, second beast is the imperial cult, the prostitute is the actual city of Rome. Maybe. It's truly, like I'm not going to just flush that down the toilet. Maybe that's what the book of Revelation is specifically referring to. I think, though, that what Revelation is doing is referring to something that's true for all people in all places and all times. And so if you talk about Rome and the Roman Empire and the Roman imperial cult, that really is not true anymore after 400 years after the time of Jesus, when there is no more Roman Empire. So you would say, well, the book was written for them and that's it, and there's no more practical application for Christians today. And I don't think that's right. I think that Rome, and what we're talking about here in the book of Revelation, is a picture of a principle. Or maybe you can talk about it in terms of like forces. Okay, so this is the way that I would try and describe what we're talking about here. Let's assume that these same forces are true about the United States of America today. So how would you apply all of these different pictures to the United States of America today? Okay, you got the dragon, you got the Satan, and Satan is using these forces to accomplish his will. So who are the forces? Well, the first beast, if you want to think about it in terms of empire, the first beast would be the military complex, or you would think about it in terms of the force, like don't mess with the empire because we will destroy you and cut your head off. The sword, right? And so that's going to be the first beast. Everybody worships the empire. The United States of America is the greatest thing that anybody has ever known in the history of the world. the empire, the military complex that causes that to happen. And so that's what you would call the first beast in this situation. The second beast, those who cause people to worship the first beast, the second beast would be the force that you might call something like propaganda, if you want to talk about it like this. I'm trying really hard not to be political or to put my political ideas in here, but you're probably about to hear some of that. So the propaganda wing of the military complex would be something like CNN. And so here you've got this mouthpiece of people, and it's not just, the second beast, how they were going out performing signs, they were really influential, and it's like, hey, listen to us, you need to worship the first beast, and also we're going to take away your ability to buy and sell unless you worship the first beast. A forceful, powerful propaganda machine. So think of something like, what is it called in our world today? Institutionalized media, the media empire. I don't know. CNN is the MSNBC is the picture of that for me. And so you've got all of these people out there saying, oh, do this thing, believe this stuff, and the force behind them is their credentials. You should listen to me because I'm a journalist who went to Harvard or Yale, and look at everything that I know. Listen to me. It's the force behind why you should do that. Maybe if you don't want to think about it in terms of media propaganda, you might think about it in terms of like the tech giants, especially before Elon bought Twitter, where people were saying, you are allowed to say this, this, and this on the internet, but if you step out of line and you start talking about things that are against the narrative, we're going to take away all of your stuff. And you're not allowed to say that anymore. And all of that stuff pushed people towards the beast. And so you've got the beast, which is the empire, the military complex that makes the empire what it is. You've got the propaganda wing of the empire, which would be institutionalized media or the tech giants or whoever pushes people towards that beast. And so the question that we're facing right now is, okay, who is the prostitute? Who is the prostitute that rides on the beast? And if it's true that the beast is the Roman Empire and the prostitute riding on the beast is Rome, the city of Rome, then you might say that the prostitute in the United States of America would be Washington, D.C. Or what I like even better than Washington, D.C. is New York City, or maybe even Los Angeles. No, Los Angeles is probably the propaganda wing, so forget that. New York City. And the idea of the prostitute here is, this is the way that I think about the prostitute. The prostitute is going to be all of the commercials that you see on TV and on the internet of women that are not wearing any clothes, and it might be Pornhub or OnlyFans or something like that, like actual prostitution, but maybe not. It's just women like, here is this sensual person. Look at me. Doesn't this look like a fun and pleasurable time? Hey, everybody, pay attention to me. And not only are you looking at this woman that's dressed like a prostitute and acting like a prostitute, but she's holding some alcohol. Oh, come and drink my alcohol. Doesn't this look like a fun time? And so the prostitute would be sinful living. All the sinful allures and desires that this world and this time has to offer. I'm not sure if that's right, but that's the way that I'm thinking about not only the identification of the beast and the prostitute, but the principles and the forces that the beast and the prostitute represent. That's how I'm thinking about some of those things. Okay, so now that I've talked about that, I want to show you something that I think is very important. I'm going to go to verse 8, chapter 17 and verse 8, and look at this. I actually wrote this in my Bible. This is how important this is to me. Starting in verse 8, we are going to begin to describe the beast And that description is going to go all the way down to verse 14. Oh, I pushed my finger, but you can't see it. It's going to be a long description of the beast. And I'm telling you right now, let me look at you when I tell you. This is crazy revelation stuff that gets people all wound up and oh no, what am I going to do? I don't understand that. But look at what I did. You've got the beast point here, okay? The point of this whole section with the beast is found in verse 16. And I actually wrote these words in my Bible to remember this. Don't get distracted. Don't get distracted by this section. So chasing every single rabbit and wild idea that you get about what's happening in this section. Don't get so distracted that you lose sight of the big point. Okay, so we're going to read this section, but I'm going to remind you, don't get distracted about this stuff that we're about to read. Okay, so let's start in verse 8. I think let's maybe I'll just break it up as we go. You know what I would like to do? Let's read it in my Bible so we can actually see my notes together on some of this stuff. There we go. How about if I focus it? Okay. Chapter 17, starting in verse 8. The beast that you saw was and is not and is about to rise from the bottomless pit and go to destruction. So we've already read about that there is a time coming when the beast is going to go out and deceive with his words all the kings of the earth, and they're going to come together to fight against God's people. So here's the beast. This is who he is. Also, this language, people always want to identify this language. The beast was and is not and is about to rise. What does that mean that he was and he is not and is about to rise? Well, one option here, and I think this is probably true, is that, he was, but he died. We've already talked about this. He died like all empires do. He is not, but there's still empires in the world today, is about to rise, and so it's this picture of death and resurrection. I think, though, if you want to try and imagine what's going on here, just go back to chapter 1, where God is described in verse 4, grace to you and peace from him who is and who was and is to come. I think the main thing that we're supposed to think about with this beast is that he is in competition with God. He is a competing force with God. Every person is going to serve one or the other. And they both look similar, and there's both a resurrection in both of their past. And so this is just kind of a picture of his fake competing value with God. The beast that you saw was and is not and is about to rise from the bottomless pit and go to destruction. And the dwellers on earth, whose names have not been written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, will marvel to see the beast, because it was and is not and is to come. So all of those people who are not God's people are just absolutely in love with this beast and going to serve the beast. Okay, verse 9. This calls for a mind with wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman is seated. Okay, this is where we need to talk about this for a second. Probably, if you pick up your study Bible or a commentary, you're going to say, oh, the woman, Rome, is seated on 7 mountains. And that's actually a thing in history, that Rome is seated on 7 mountains. But do you remember how we started this video by saying the number 7 in Revelation does not always necessarily mean the actual number 7. It's a picture of completeness and fullness. And so, again, like I keep saying this, maybe it's Rome. Maybe in this context we're specifically talking about Rome. But more than that, what is the principle behind it that's true for all people even still today? The 7 heads are 7 mountains. Mountains are the seat of power, always. Gods, in the ancient gods, lowercase g, false gods, fake gods. Gods live on mountains. Zeus lives on a mountain. Even in the Bible, God is pictured, and we'll see this in a little bit, is pictured living on top of a mountain. So there's 7 mountains, the fullness of power. So the 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman is seated. They are also 7 kings. Okay, here's another thing. 5 of whom have fallen, one is, the other has not yet come. And when he does come, he must remain only for a little while. And this is where people start to get a little bit crazy with who are these kings? Well, you've got the first 5 kings who are the first 5 emperors of Rome, and one is currently the emperor of Rome, and this gives us the date, the actual date of the book of Revelation. Who is the emperor of Rome? And the other one is not yet to come, and that's important because it tells us what this book is about when the next emperor comes. And okay, so maybe, but I'm really more interested in the picture of 7 kings, which gives me the sense of, total and complete power. Verse 11, as for the beast that was and is not, it is an 8th, but it belongs to the 7, and it goes to destruction. And the 10 horns that you saw are 10 kings. We already talked about those 10 kings. 10 kings who have not yet received royal power, but they are to receive authority as kings for 1 hour together with the beast. The 10 horns, the 10 kings, all of earth's kings and nations. It's just 10, fullness, completeness, everything that there is. So all of the world, all of the powers in the world are coming together against God and his people. Verse 13. Hey, I wonder if I should do this. Let me come to look at you on this. Don't get distracted. We're talking about all this stuff. We're reading the text. Don't get distracted with all this. We're not actually to the main point yet. We're just reading through. So stick with me. All these kings in verse 13, these are of one mind. They hand over their power and authority to the beast. They will make war on the Lamb. I like this a lot. I did it in green just because I like it so much. And the Lamb will conquer them. For he is Lord of lords and King of kings, and those who are with him are called chosen and faithful. Let's actually do that because I want that in my Bible. Verse 14. And the Lamb will conquer them. And the reason why I like that so much is because you've got all of this buildup and all of this crazy stuff. You got the dragon and you got the beast and empires, and not just empires, but all the empires and all of their kings and everything that it represents, and the prostitute and the seat of power in Rome and Babylon and Washington, D.C. and New York, all of this stuff. You got all of these things, and they're all coming together to fight against God and against his people. And this is what God gives us. And the Lamb will conquer them. That's it. Like that's it for God. That's it. Knowing that thing that we just talked about, knowing that is how you can lay your head on your pillow at night. It all looks crazy and scary to us as we live in the midst of it, but this is the point that we're about ready to see. God has everything under control, and it's not a problem for him. That's the point. That's our main takeaway. And just to see how much God has everything under control, sometimes I feel amused by myself by what I write in my Bible. So here's what you've got. You've got the beast. Just think about the beast right now. Don't try to understand every single little thing about him. Don't get distracted. You've got the beast. Go to verse 16. That's where we are right now. When you come down to verse 16, the 10 horns that you saw, they and the beast will hate the prostitute. Look what I wrote in my Bible. Twist ending. Didn't see that one coming. It's the horns and the beast that the woman is riding on. The beast is the one that's going to rise up against the prostitute and take care of her for us. They, the beast and the horns, the kings, they will make her desolate and naked, and devour her flesh and burn her up with fire. I wonder if that's one reason why she's referred to as a prostitute, because the devil and his agents, they like a prostitute, they just use her and discard her when they're finished. And so maybe that's one of the things. But I like this verse 17. For God has put it into their hearts to carry out his purpose by being of one mind and handing over their royal power to the beast until the words of God are fulfilled. And the woman that you saw is the great city that has domination over the kings of the earth. So let's go ahead and mark that in our Bible, and I think we'll just go ahead and call this video it for now. So verse 16, I'm going to do this whole verse. And the 10 horns that you saw, they and the beast will hate the prostitute. They will make her desolate and naked and devour her flesh and burn her up with fire. That's the only thing that you have to know about the beast, is that whoever this prostitute is, she's riding on the beast. And the great news is that even though it looks like they are this unstoppable, unbeatable force who are fighting against God's people, God has worked out a plan so that they're going to fight and kill each other. I'm going to put that in green just so I can remember it. God has put it into their hearts to carry out his purpose. Green. Don't ever forget that. It looks like everything is crazy and out of control. It's under control, and it's not a problem for God at all. Okay, so let's go ahead and call this video it. We've got 2 sections. This whole thing, don't lose sight of this. It's all about the destruction of the prostitute. Whoever she is, whatever she is, it's all about the destruction of the prostitute. So we talked about verses 1 through 6. We talked about the story, and we talked about verses 7 through 15, and we did some character identification. And now, actually starting in chapter 18, we're going to talk about her destruction, and then we're going to talk about some different reactions to her destruction.